My gosh. This year is going to be meteoric. Do you feel it? I am so excited for what's ahead. And I don't even know exactly what it is yet. I just can feel it. Whew, Happy New Year, I hope. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna do New Year's differently from this point forward because this, the way that I did it this year was so powerful and transformative, and it helped me remember the plot. I lost the plot a little bit at the end of last year. And for me, that means that I fell out of love with life a little bit. I was really sort of focused on all of the ways that the world is wrong. And I was not as well, I forgot that I'm part of an infinite universe and I'm having a human experience and I get to show up in this meat suit and witness the beauty that exists on this planet. And I'll tell you what, there's a couple things that happened that helped me to remember why we're here. And one of them is that I died in a dream. And I know I've heard that you're not supposed to be able to do that. And I recognize, well, I'll tell you about the dream and just know that I, as I experienced this dream, there was not a single second that I felt anxious. There was not a single moment of fear. It was all peace and expansion. But it was wild. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I don't really dream. Or if I do dream, I don't remember them. Every once in a while, I will have a very powerful, very significant dream that I will remember. But for the most part on the daily, I don't remember them. I will put an asterisk by this and tell you that I have recently been taking a tincture that has blue lotus in it, and that seems to have revved up my access to my dreams or has been allowing them to happen a little bit more, and I'll get into that maybe a little bit later. When I do remember them, it's always just like sort of super short, and it's always sort of I come away with an intense emotion. So in this particular dream, I am in an active shooter situation. I understand that there is someone who has shot me, and I am lying on the ground and I have my eyes closed. So I am experiencing blackness because I have the sense that I am laying on the ground with my eyes closed, and I sense that the shooter is standing above me. And I know that they're going to shoot me again to make sure that I'm dead. And during that realization, I have nothing but peace and acceptance of that fact. And then I actually feel the bullet go into my brain, and I feel my brain explode and expand. And the sense of release and the sense of oneness with the universe and expansiveness, like it's just like I immediately get into this like incredible peace and oneness and joy and release. And then I woke up, and for a second I I was like, did I just have a stroke? Like, what just happened? Like, how did I just experience what it feels like to die, which is what it felt like I experienced. And And yeah, I have kind of marveled at that experience on a number of occasions, obviously, since that happened. And it reminded me of two things: a really powerful meditation that I had early in my awakening journey, where I came away from that meditation feeling like I knew what it was like to die, in terms of that sense of home that and belonging that I have sort of never really felt here. And then with this sort of, yeah, expansion into the universe, I don't know. Like, what I do know is that I don't fear death at all. And man, is that freedom. Right? Like, it really does help you to, well, it helps me to lean into this experience that I'm having here on this planet, knowing that that on one hand I get this shot to experience what this is, and it's not the ending, you know. It's a film, it's a movie. And I can move through this experience knowing that there is amazingness once this is over, and also that I'm here to experience all of the amazingness and beauty and all that there is, all that I choose for myself to experience in this existence on this planet, this go around. And so between that and, really being intentional about thinking about this past year and thinking about where I've come from, where I started in January of last year and where I ended, and reflecting on the lessons that I have learned that I will be taking with me into this new year. This past year was the year that I got my purpose, and then I got to really sort of understand what my North Star is while I'm here on this planet. And for me, it is creating the world that I want to see and being in action, aligned action towards that thing. And man, it makes making decisions really easy once you have that locked in. And also when you have the questions that pop up, right? When you're like, gosh, I am really not following the program that the world is telling me is the program we're supposed to be following, and I'm really, I'll have those moments. I'll have those moments where I'm like, oh, what are you doing? For example, I came to a decision at the end of this year that, I have a 401k from my time working in corporate America, and I just decided that I just don't want it in the stock market. And I understand that everything about the system is like, this is wrong. Like, you must put your money in the stock market. This is how you retire. And I don't want my money going towards a world. Money is energy. And it's just so clear to me that I need to put my energy towards the world that I want to see. And the stock market as a whole does not represent the world that I want to see. I really want to, support the companies and the people that are doing what's next. And so, I'm still trying to figure out what that piece is, but it's feeling really lovely to know that I'm not contributing to a broken system. It's living for today. I'm not saving things up so that maybe someday down the road I can eventually live the life that I want to live. And also understanding that that's going to grow and change and shift and morph, and all I can do is just be in aligned action, taking little steps towards it. and that it could change along the way. And that's okay. Actually, that's delightful. And that is another thing that was like hammered in, lesson hammered home this at the end of this year, which is that when things don't work out the way that you want them to, it is because something better is the universe is presenting you with something even better that you didn't even think of. And that becomes really apparent when you travel, right? Because you're traveling with all of these hopes and expectations of what it is that you want, whether it's the place you're staying or the activities you're doing or what the weather is going to look like or what the food's going to be like. And ultimately, when those things when those expectations aren't met, a lot of times it's easy to fall into an energy of disappointment and judgment over what's happened. Or when something goes wonky, you can be like, oh, well, this isn't working out the way that I thought it was going to. All right, what's coming in instead? What has the universe got planned for me instead? And I gotta tell you, it's pretty delightful when you operate from that place, from that perspective. And that's kind of how I flowed through I was with two girlfriends, and we were in beautiful nature, and we took time to reflect on the past year and think about the lessons that we learned and write down the things that we needed to let go of, and we burned them in a fire. And then we got to spend time talking through what it is that we want for ourselves for this year coming up, and what are the things, identifying and really sort of working through the things that come up that might hold us back from really going for it. And so then by the end of this sort of amazing trip, we came out feeling invincible, feeling like, let's fucking go. Like, let's just go for it this year. And I think that that's where this feeling, like this feeling of hope, and like that this is going to be a meteoric year. It's just inherent in our bodies moving into this year. And what a freaking great place to be, right? Like, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. And then in addition to have this tool that when things don't work out exactly as we planned, it's just because something even better and more interesting and more creative the universe has in store for us that we didn't even see coming. And so yay to that. So all of that is happening. And then in addition to that, it's really interesting to think about how much I've changed and grown, and how much I see people around me changing and growing, and how much we as humans like to we talk about people in the ways that they've shown up in the past. That person's like this, or this person's like that, And when you're looking at how changey and shifty and wild the world is right now, and the energy that's out there, it's really silly to do that. And so ultimately what I've come to is that I am going to, every single person in my life is showing up new every time I see them, because things are changing and shifting so completely that it's silly to expect that anyone is going to show up in the way that they were on the timeline that they were on, because who the heck knows what they've been through and how they've changed, and what I've been through and what timeline I'm existing on. So might as well show up with curiosity with every single person, like, oh, well, who are you now? How are you showing up today? Because it gives, well, I mean, if you think about it in terms of characters, main character energy, you can create space that way for a villain to become a hero, and vice versa. But I'd like to think that in my world, it's yeah, it's creating space for every single one of us to show up, to understand that we're all an important piece of what's next, and that if we have the courage and the desire to create something new and we don't make decisions based on fear. Actually, it's kind of every time there's a little bit of fear, it's like, ooh, how do I lean into that? Because on the other side of that is more freedom. And that, that's fun. It's a kind of a fun way to go about this whole thing, to go about this game. And the levels that I am going to unlock this year are really fun. There's so much exploring to still be done. And the goddess nights at the bathhouse have been incredible. I don't think that I talked about this, but last month's bathhouse night, I was going through it. I had a really rough experience that had hurt my heart and had me rethinking things and reprocessing things. And so when the goddess night had showed up, I was not feeling like myself, and I had this expectation that I'm fun, I'm light, and I was feeling like I wasn't able to bring that, and I'm no longer able to like mask or pretend. And so I was really kind of conflicted, because normally I would cancel, right? Like normally I'd be like, oh my gosh, no one wants me to show up like this. I'm like morose right now. No one wants that. So, but I couldn't cancel because it was my own event. So I did it to myself, which I was like, oh my God, why did you do this to yourself? But I had to put on my big girl panties and go anyway and just show up exactly as I was. And wouldn't you know that the women who showed up that night created the most beautiful container that allowed me to feel so safe and held, showing up exactly as I was. And oh my gosh, by the end of the night, we were just healed. I was healed. It was so amazing. And so I'm understanding that each of these nights is going to take on its own energy and its own, sort of vibe, but it feels really healing and magical. And so I am continuing to lean into that, and I'm excited to see where that goes. So yeah, like when I listened back on the podcast that I recorded a year ago, which was really powerful. It was a good reminder of how far I've come. And, I had this feeling of anticipation at the beginning of last year, and I didn't know what to attribute it to. And it turns out that my year was about playing outside and having all these amazing outdoor adventures. And this year, I have this, it's this feeling of hope. And it doesn't make any sense, if you're paying attention to, if you're listening to the news or paying attention to what's going on, out there in the world. Hope is it feels rebellious. It feels rebellious. I don't have my head in the sand. And to anyone who is feeling the audacity to be hopeful right now, good on you. Good on you. We need more people leaning into the feeling that we're going to be okay. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be amazing. That we are leaning into all of us creating this amazing world that has nothing to do with pointing to the past or pointing to what is and saying that's wrong, and everything to do with saying, ooh, this is the way to create something amazing that makes sense, that is in support of humans and the planet. Which reminds me, oh my God, I didn't even mention that right before the end of the year, I got invited to a regenerative earth conference where I was in this room full of people who are doing exactly that. They're creating what is next, and their visions for what is possible are incredibly beautiful. And in addition to that, there were hedge fund managers there. There's a whole subset of finance people who have looked around and said, oh, you know what? This is where I want to put my money. And so, I mean, that's so exciting. Didn't see that one coming, and it's here. It's actually here. I witnessed it. And when I hear these incredibly smart people putting their energy towards this bright future of abundance and people being able to exist in a place of creative mode in creative mode, and not participating in the game of extreme resource hoarding because it's fucking boring and it's stale, and instead using their resources and their smarts and their intelligence and their knowledge and their energy in the form of money to create systems and things that allow people to feel safe and abundant and creative, and that we get to have more beauty and more joy and more connection, and we get to live in worlds where we're truly connected as humans and we're not relying on technology. Gosh, it's so wild to think about that it was not that long ago that I was sitting in front of a computer like every day, all day, 5 days a week. Oh my gosh. One of my New Year's resolutions was, I got into this really bad habit of looking at my phone when I wake up in the morning, first thing. And I've stopped doing that. And wow, my brain fog has gone away. I'm more motivated. I have more positive energy, like starting off. I'm more optimistic. It's like, yeah, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. So if you don't hear from me first thing in the morning, that's why. Because I am actually really being intentional about my mornings, and I will get back to you, but it's not going to be when I first wake up. It's going to be after I've created a morning routine, which I have never had. So I am bringing that in. And I hope by the time that you hear my next podcast, I will have figured out a way to bring cold plunges into my life. That's high on the list too. So those are my intentions. That's what I'm leaning into for 2024. And much like 2023, I can't imagine how much will have changed when I reflect back on this past year. But I am delighted to go on this journey, and I am so happy that you're here to share it with me. So thanks for listening. Happy 2024.